Let's take a look at how to interpret circle graphs. On Safari, Joshua made a chart of the different animals he saw. Which animal was spotted the most times? Okay, so first of all, when we have a circle graph, this is a visual way to represent what slice of the pie or what percentage was taken up by each of several items. So in this case, he spotted a bunch of different animals. And notice 50 out of 100, or 50%, would be half of the pie. 25 out of 100 animals, or 25%, would be a quarter of the pie. 10%, right, 10 out of 100 would be a tenth. So the circle graph is always showing parts out of the whole, right, which is really helpful when we have percents. It's a nice visual way to see the percentage of the whole thing taken up by each category. So in this case, which animal was spotted the most times? Well, which animal takes up the biggest piece of the pie? Well, the biggest piece of the pie is over here, the jaguars, right? There were 50 out of 100 of those animals were jaguars. Everything else had a smaller slice of the pie or a smaller number of those animals. So he saw the most jaguars. Daniel has a garden. Which flower is in the garden the fewest times? Okay, well in this case, we can see he must have a total of 12 flowers because we can see each of the flowers as a fraction of the 12 he has. Well, which flower is in the garden the fewest times? If I look for the smallest slice of my pie, the orange slice is the smallest, right? I can see he only had one orchid. Everything else has more, two or three. So orchids is the flower that's in the garden the fewest times. A hair salon kept track of the number of individual requests for each stylist over a month. Which stylist had the most requests? Okay, well, to see which one is the most, I want to look at that circle graph and see which one is the biggest slice. And this blue slice is by far the biggest, right? Brianna had 6 requests. Everybody else only had 1 or 2. So Brianna must be the most popular or had the most requests. On Safari, Savannah made a chart of the different animals she saw. Which animal was spotted the fewest times? Okay, well, notice they're asking for the fewest this time. So we want to look for the smallest piece of the pie. Okay, and the smallest slice looks like it's right here. Antelopes were only spotted 1 time. Everything else was spotted 2, 3, or 4 times. So antelopes were spotted the fewest times. Below is a chart of earthquakes per country. Which country had the most earthquakes? Okay, well, since they're asking about the most, I want to look for the biggest piece of my pie. Well, the biggest slice is right here, which represents Indonesia, right? Notice they had 5 earthquakes. All the other countries only had 1 or 2. A hair salon kept track of the number of individual requests for each stylist over a month. Which list is arranged from the least to the greatest? Okay, well, the least number, the smallest slice, should be Anna. Okay, so it can't be the first one. Anna should be the smallest, right? Because we're saying from the least to the most, or smallest to greatest. Okay, well, after Anna, the next most would be Haley, right, with 4. And then the most would be Madison with 6. So the correct order, well, Madison was the most, so she should not be in the middle, right? Anna only had 2, then Haley with 4, then Madison with 6. So that is our correct order for least to most. Jacob has a garden. Which list is arranged from the least to most flowers in the garden? Okay, well, the least one would be the smallest slice, right? The smallest slice here is roses. He only has 2, so roses should come first. Okay, so I can cross off the first one. The next most after that, the next biggest would be lilies at 3, and then the biggest would be orchids at 7. Okay, so orchids would not be in the middle. They were the biggest. So the correct order, roses with 2, then lilies with 3, and then orchids had the most with 7. Connor has a grocery store, and he made a chart of the current cheese inventory. Which list is arranged from the most to least blocks of cheese? Okay, and be careful, the last few said least to most. This time it said most to least. So we need to make sure our list starts with the biggest number and then works its way down. Okay, well the biggest slice would be marble, right? Marble had 5. Okay, so I can cross off the first one. And then the next most would be Swiss with 4. And then the smallest would be Pannier with 3. So our order should be marble, Swiss, Pannier, right? Going from 5 to 4 to 3 for most to least. An ice cream shop sells 5 different flavors and tracks its weekly sales. Which list is arranged from the least to most scoops sold? Okay, always looking at that order, least to most, so I'm going to start with the smallest and work up to the biggest. Well, the least or the smallest number of scoops was chocolate. That's surprising to me because chocolate's my favorite, but okay, this was the smallest slice of our pie with only 2 scoops. And then it moves into vanilla with 3 scoops, and then the most was strawberry at 7. Okay, so for least to most, we should be starting with chocolate, then vanilla, and then strawberry was actually the most. Caden is an amateur astronomer, and he made a chart of how many meteorites struck the various continents last year. Which list is arranged from the least to most meteorite impacts? Okay, so again, always reading carefully, least to most. So we're going to go from the smallest to the biggest. The least would be our smallest slice of the pie. South America only had 1. Then we would have Europe with 4, and the most was Asia with 7. Okay, so let's see, we need South America, then Europe, then Asia. So that would be our first list.